Hey guys. Yeah, I made a little presentation. I like visuals. And that projector bulb just went out. Cool. Okay. So first patient that I ever had. This was their initial intake exam. We have 4 different complaints. One with low back pain that radiates to the right anterior kneecap, cervical pain that radiates to the left scapula, an aching headache, and sinus pressure in the face. So when we're adjusting each other in clinic or just in our classes and stuff, it's very easy to feel like what we do doesn't have an effect because most of us are presenting asymptomatically, right? So as soon as you get to the clinic and you get something like this, I felt really intimidated. I was like, oh man, like, how do I even do this? Does what I do even work? You have those doubts in your head, but what I got some good advice from an upper quarter, just telling me, have confidence, know that what you do makes a difference, and I just took that and went with it. After my first appointment, I did SLI, I did light drop. I was like, I don't want to hurt this patient because of all these complaints, but as we continued on with care and my confidence grew, we were able to go on with care. The patient's goals, first and foremost, was no more pain. You'll see in the next slide, they were dealing with a lot of pain, increased function, and just overall more energy. So the chief complaint, you can see that it started 10 years ago. So they've been dealing with it for a very long time. It was a work-related injury, bent over, and also working in construction. They had a just quick moment where they had this pain and they've been dealing with it for 10 years. The only thing you can see here that makes it feel better is adjustments. And I said, is there anything else? No. The only thing that makes it feel better is adjustments. I'm like, okay, noted. Let's go back real quick. And you'll notice here at the note of severity, it said the last time it felt like an 8 was last week from a workout. So very often what would happen is there would be these episodes of pain where it would shoot up to an 8 out of 10 and it would linger for days, depending on their movement or a workout that they would do. There would just be these triggers where all of a sudden they would not be able to function the way that they wanted. Second complaint was the cervical pain that radiated to the scapula. Same with the, at worst, jumping all the way up to an 8 out of 10. So, and you can see that they're experiencing these symptoms very frequently. 12 hours of the day they're dealing with this pain. The next one was a headache, which was related to the neck pain and also to the sinus stiffness. And what do we do about it? This is a picture of Rodrigo. Everyone loves Rodrigo. But what I wanted to say is, at first, I'm very objective in my thought process, and I resonate a lot with chiropractic biophysics as a technique, addressing spinal curvature. However, when I first came into the clinic, there's a lot of processes that you have to go through before you can use that technique. So for the first few weeks of care, 6 weeks of care, diversified care and drop table was what I was doing. And I'll remind you that the patient's goals were no pain, increased function, and more energy. So what we started doing is just seeing each other consistently, and we were able to, within 6 weeks, decrease that pain, you can see right here, from jumping up to an 8 out of 10 on both the cervical and the low back pain. That was a 5 consistently, with just 6 weeks of care, to a 1 and a 2, and then the sinus pressure and the headache to a 1. So I can't take credit for the sinus pressure and the headache. They had the cranio release technique done with like the balloons into the nasal area, and that actually helped clear up their cervicogenic headaches and the sinus pressure, which was really awesome. So we're seeing a lot of progress at this point, and I'm feeling really happy about it. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to say about that. But whilst we had these good results, what I really started to notice was just the way that the patient changed, their demeanor. Every time they would come in, very soft-spoken patient, not super talkative, but every time that the patient would come in, consistently, I start to see a smile, a bigger smile. How's it going, Adrien? It's so great to be here. And just this kind of resurgence of life in my patient that just made me so happy. And I remember after a certain amount of time, my patient came in, like I said, doesn't say too much. And once we did that reeval, my patient looked at me and said, Adrien, I appreciate you so much for taking my case. Thank you so much. And those words, while they might not be super grand, meant a lot to me because I could just see in his eyes the intent that he had when he said those words, that he really, really meant it. And that just made me feel so validated in my care and also so excited for me to be a part of their journey to get back to health, to proper function. So we started CBP care a little bit more than a month ago now. And I'd like to point out right here, if you know anything about CBP, if you don't, it's okay. You need these this is the safe range of curvature, -35 to -45 degrees of extension. And my patient was presenting with -23. So somewhat out of the range, but the bigger thing was the posterior translation. So a safe range is up to -20, with 0 being ideal. And my patient was -35 millimeters. So you can see that they're very posteriorly translated and they're hypolordotic. So definitely a candidate for CBP care. For me, what I really wanted to achieve with this patient is get them away from making the adjustment the only thing that gave them relief, right? What I want to do is get my patient to a point where they don't see chiropractic care as a pain pill, but what they see it as is an opportunity to express their best self and function at the best rate possible. So my goal is to really get them, thank you. My goal is to get them to a place of structural change where they can hold that wellness for a really long time. And whilst this case might have been intimidating for me, I do want to just stress one thing. Another patient that I had in the clinic, like, it gets real when we get to clinic, guys. Like, I really highly recommend you take your adjusting serious. You take your classes serious. One of my other outpatients came in, and she was dealing with back pain. And as we started to peel away the layers of the story, I learned more and more. And to my surprise, she had confined within me. I was the only healthcare profession or caregiver that she told she had a history of 2 abortions that were related to her back pain that she never told any other caregiver, her primary care physician, nobody, not even her parents. I was the only person she told. So when it comes to taking your classes seriously, you need to be competent when it comes to the mechanisms, when it comes to understanding what the heck is going on. Because at that point, I'm like, that doesn't sound like a chiropractic problem. I need to make sure that this is safe, right? Because people trust us. No one gives people the time that we do. Like, we are there and we really care for our patients. So I think it's just extremely, all the speakers before have mentioned how important it is to be present with your patients and really show them, hold that space for them. And it's so true because people will trust us more than other caregivers. Excellent. So now that we've done a month and a half of care with this patient here, we've gone through 16 chiropractic biophysics sessions with mirror image adjustments, exercises, and traction. And I'm very happy to say that my patient for the last 4 weeks has had no low back pain, 0, no more neck pain, 0, no more headaches, and no more sinus congestion, and is feeling much more energetic as they reflect not just in their RAND scores, but also just the way they show up every day. So I would love to show you guys a post x-ray, but we don't do post x-rays until we get the 30 to 36 visits that it takes with CBP care. But the way that my patient is responding really well to the care, I have a very good feeling that we're going to have a really awesome x-ray at the end of it to show kind of that improvement in structure and function. if I can just use the last bit of time to kind of talk to Adrien when he was sitting in this seminar, quarter 2, quarter 3, and he was like learning all these things in science class and learning about all these mechanisms, enzyme reactions and whatnot, you kind of have this overwhelming feeling of, man, like, what do we even do about this? The body is so complex. Like, is what we do even working, right? And you can read things on the internet about like chiropractic, care not being validated in scientific studies and whatnot. It's so much more than that. It's not just this narrow confine of, okay, you have a result. Chiropractic care is a systemic thing. It's about creating lasting change in that person's life. And what I will say when it comes to talking to Adrien in his second quarter, chiropractic works, and CBP isn't for everybody. Not every patient is going to respond to CBP care, but they might respond to NET, to SOT, to drop table, to whatever. Chiropractic works, and I'd really love to get to a point where we can recognize which patients need what type of care, and we can all refer to each other. That's really something that I would love to see in the future. Lastly, before I joined the fraternity, one of the members said to me before I joined, there's 3 things. These are Keone's 3. It's not what you do, it's why you do it. Show up, be present, be where your feet are right now. And the last one, it's not what you get, it's what you give. Thanks, guys.
All right, all I'm going to say to that is amen. What a great day. A lot of presentation. And sitting out there and not in the clinic yet, understand you will be, and you will see patients, and you will have an effect on their lives. Here, we see real things happening in our clinic. It's not just a place to jump through. So thanks, guys, for your presentations today. Really appreciate it. Everybody have a great day, okay? Thank you very much.